guys, this video is going to talk about leash corrections. So just to start off, I want to make sure that you know that leash corrections do not hurt the dog. That's not the purpose of a leash correction. But after a certain period of time, the dog's going to need to know what they've done wrong just as much as, what they've done right. So after a certain period of time, I'm going to ask you to start to implement leash corrections for whatever reason. And I just want to make sure that there's some video footage of how to properly execute this. So every dog is different. So some dogs are much softer, much more sensitive than other dogs. Some dogs are pretty hard-headed. So a leash correction is going to vary depending on the dog, the dog itself. So for a dog that's really sensitive, you're not going to need much of a leash correction because it's going to send a message to a sensitive dog much quicker. Whereas, you have a dog that's really hard-headed and kind of spunky and higher energy, a harder leash correction will probably be more appropriate. So the key thing to know about leash corrections is that you want to make sure you look at the dog's body language after you give the leash correction, because if there's any sort of cowering or anything, you probably went a little bit too hard. That's really not the purpose. The purpose is to just tell the dog, is to kind of pop the dog with the leash and just kind of get, elicit a reaction of, oh, hey, sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to do that. So again, this is not supposed to hurt the dog in any way. It's just kind of implemented to quickly stop the behavior and teach the dog, hey, that's not necessarily the right thing to do. So I'm going to demonstrate this with Vegas. So usually when I give a leash correction, I implement another verbal marker as well, so a negative marker. So you have and you have no. So is used for things like jumping, for things like picking up something off the floor. No is a lot more serious. That's something that you really should never do. So like jumping on furniture or having an accident when you're really too old to have an accident. So think of always giving a verbal marker while you're giving a leash correction, because that's going to solidify the verbal marker when you're not giving a leash correction. So Vegas. All right, so when giving a leash correction, you want to avoid pulling. Pulling, what does that mean? It means to sit, right? And it's pretty much more of an annoyance to the dog than anything else. I'm not making any impression for him. He doesn't really care about this at all. So what you really want to do is kind of let the leash go slack and then just kind of pop a little bit. So he's pretty hard-headed, so he's able to take that. But a dog that's really sensitive, that's going to be enough for them. Oh, hey, you didn't want me to do that? And they'll be able to change the behavior going forward. So it's important that you're not just pulling, you're kind of letting the leash release and then giving kind of a pop on the leash. So again, this is a pretty light one for a dog that, he doesn't care about this at all. If I was gonna make an impression with him, I'd have to go a little bit harder. But again, this is where you're gonna have to gauge the dog that you have and their personality. So if you are in the house and you don't have a leash dragging and the dog does something wrong, I'm going to mark the behavior with an or a no, depending on what it is. And then I'm going to go over and give them a leash correction just with my hand and the collar. So there's going to be instances where, hey, the dog's head's in the trash across the room. I see it. I'm marking the instance where it happened, where he went wrong. And that gives me time to go over and give him the same thing. Nice pop on the leash, all right? Or on the collar, rather.